Good afternoon. We'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Algonquin Highlands is located on Treaty 20 Mishi-Saugig territory and in the traditional territory of the Mishi-Saugig and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We also acknowledge historic shared presence of other Indigenous nations throughout the area, and we recognize these original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. The following meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is a public meeting to consider development proposals that don't comply with the provisions of the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. My name is Liz Danielson, and I'm the chair of the committee. I'd like to introduce the other members of the committee. John Rogers, public member. Fergus McLaren, public member. Christine Sharp, another public member, is away today, but we also have Sabrina Richards, councillor for Ward 2. In addition, we're joined by our planner, Sean O'Callaghan. Mr. O'Callaghan will provide a brief overview of each application, after which the applicant or their agenda will have an opportunity to address the committee. Following this, anyone who wishes to speak to the application either in support or against will be given the opportunity to do so. The committee will discuss the proposal and be given the opportunity to ask questions of both our planner and the applicant. The committee will then vote to grant, refuse, or defer the proposal. Could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda for today? So moved, seconded by Fergus.
Moved by John Rogers, second by Fergus McLaren. Be it resolved, the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves as circulated the meeting agenda of February 23rd, 2024.
All in favor? That's carried. Could I also have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes from January the 25th? Member McLaren, seconded by, thank you, sir. Member Rogers.
Moved by Fergus McLaren, seconded by John Rogers. Be it resolved, the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves as circulated the meeting minutes of January 25th, 2024.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. And the first application is by Fletcher on Kawagama Lake.
This property is located at 1061 Cog Bay Drive. The lands are zoned Shoreline Residential 2 and designated waterfront under the official plan. The property is approximately 2.52 acres in area with 85.3 meters of frontage on Kawagama Lake. Surrounding uses are generally shoreline residential, and the lands are currently developed with a dwelling, a detached garage, boat port, sauna, hot tub, and a barbecue shed. The owner is proposing to construct a new 5,256 square foot detached garage at the rear of the property. The applicant recently completed a lot addition of 1.52 acres of land through consent. The proposed garage will be over 91 meters from the high water mark. The minor variance being requested today is to increase the accessory structure lot coverage from 5% to 6.14% to accommodate the construction of the 5,256 square foot detached garage. Notice of the application was posted on the property, posted on the township website, and circulated to property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands, as well as to the Kawagama Lake Cottagers Association. No objections have been received to date, and staff are recommending approval of the proposed minor variance with the following condition: that the maximum principal structure lot coverage be reduced from 15% to 13.86%.
Do the committee members have any question for Sean?
Just a quick question. Is this an appropriate situation to have a clause or a condition that says no habitation, no living accommodation in the garage?
Yes, we could certainly add that if the committee wishes. It's my understanding it's going to have electricity and plumbing, but no living quarters within it. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that there's actually septic systems, right?
Right.
So I just thought maybe we should make that clear.
Certainly.
Any other questions for Sean? I understand that the applicant, Mr. Fletcher, is here. I do like the idea of adding that condition.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fletcher.
Good afternoon.
You've heard Sean's report.
Yes, I
Is
have.
there anything that you would like to add as far as information?
No, just to confirm, there's no intent of having living quarters. It's basically for storage and a workshop for working on our snowmobiles and ATVs and all the toys. So
So, Mr. Fletcher, would you confirm that it is for personal use only and not for any commercial purpose? It is
That's
a large
correct.
facility.
yeah, that's correct. It's just personal use only. No, there won't be any commercial use at all.
Are
Yeah.
there any questions from the committee members of Mr. Fletcher?
Madam Chair. I
Go ahead,
just,
Member Rogers.
sorry, through you, Madam Chair. With respect to the, there's a condition that we sometimes put in just saying that it's a condition that you cannot use the premises for living purposes, living
Correct.
accommodation. Would you be okay if we added that as a condition?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Fletcher? Hearing none, then could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the application with that additional condition? Member Richards, Member Rogers.
Moved by Sabrina Richards, seconded by John Rogers. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment hereby grants minor variance application HMV 00124 to seek relief from section 4.2.6 of the zoning bylaw to increase the maximum accessory structured lot coverage from 5% to 6.14% for the purpose of constructing a 5,256 square foot detached garage. Conditional on the maximum principal structured lot coverage being 13.86%. And 2, that the structure not be used for living accommodation.
All in favor? That's carried. So your application has been approved, Mr. Fletcher, just to be aware
Okay.
that there is a 20-day appeal period
Right.
before any construction can commence.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Have a good weekend and good luck with your project.
Thank you. Bye.
The next application is by Zhang on Oxtongue Lake.
This property is located at 1056 Tom Paris Road on Oxtongue Lake. The lands are zoned shoreline residential 1 and designated waterfront under the official plan. This application is to seek relief from section 4.2.9G of the zoning bylaw to increase the maximum area of a gazebo from 10 square meters to 11.2 square meters. I would note in my report, it originally said 13.3 square meters, I believe it was, but that's since been reduced now to 11.2. This application is a result of an order to comply being issued to the property owners regarding illegal construction of a deck on the subject lands. The order does require that the property owner bring the property into compliance with the zoning bylaw and the building code. The applicant has advised that a portion of the deck will be demolished to bring the deck into compliance with zoning. Building permit will still be required. The property is approximately 0.69 acres in area with 31 meters of frontage on Oxtongue Lake. The surrounding uses are generally shoreline residential, and the lands are currently developed with a dwelling, 2 sheds, detached garage, shoreline deck, and a dock. The owner is proposing to construct a 120.6 square foot gazebo in front of the existing dwelling. The proposed gazebo is to be located approximately 15.5 meters from the high water mark. The applicant has advised a portion of the deck will be removed in order to reduce the projection to 6 meters, bringing the deck into compliance with zoning. The proposed gazebo will be located on the upper portion of the property, on part of the deck in front of the dwelling. Staff are not supportive of the proposed minor variance to permit the proposed gazebo, as there is limited rationale and there appears to be other locations on the subject lands where gazebo of that size could be constructed in compliance with the township zoning bylaws. Notice of the application was posted on the property, posted on the township website, and circulated to property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands, as well as to the Oxtongue Lake Property Owners Association. 2 letters of objection were received from adjacent property owners, and staff are recommending refusal of the proposed minor variance.
Questions from the committee for Sean? Member Rogers.
Through you, Madam Chair, just if they brought it down to the 10 square meters, would they be allowed to leave it there?
That is correct.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Questions from other members? Okay, I understand that that there is a representative here for the applicant, Mr. Hungerford.
Ernest is here as well, so we'll bring them both in.
Okay. Good afternoon, gentlemen. You've heard Mr. O'Callahan's report. Is there anything that you'd like to add or some information you'd like to provide to support the application?
Yes, there is, Madam Chairman. Thank you. And good afternoon to yourself and to the committee members and staff. Excuse me. My name is Peter Hungerford. I'm a registered professional planner and presently senior planner at Marie Poirier Planning and Associates. Our firm address is 44 King William Street, Unit A in Huntsville, Ontario. And we're appearing on behalf of our clients, Mr. and Mrs. Yang and their family, excuse me, who own the property at 1056 Tom Paris Road. As Sean has stated, the purpose and effect of this application for a minor variance is to erect, or pardon me, to permit the erection of a prefabricated gazebo structure having an area of 11.2 square meters or 120.6 square feet. Excuse me, whereas the township zoning bylaw permits a gazebo with an area of 10 square meters or 107 square feet. So essentially, we are looking to increase the size of the gazebo by 12.9 square feet. Our clients have 2 small children, and the planned deck and the gazebo that they would like to construct on the property is intended to create a well-defined space for the children to play outside. When mom and dad are working inside, they can keep an eye on them at the front, but they do not want them wandering around the property. So essentially, the deck and the gazebo will provide a defined space for them to play. The gazebo, of course, during that time of the year when we all suffer from mosquitoes and black flies. Although the staff report prepared by the township planner has not recommended approval, I'd like to draw the committee's attention to the supplementary planning report that was prepared by our firm that evaluated the revised proposal, and that's now presented to the committee for its consideration. That report discusses the attributes of the application and demonstrates that the variance now being requested is in fact a minor variance, being a slight increase in the size of the planned gazebo. The application, we believe, meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, which the committee must consider. In these regards, I'd also draw the committee's attention to the site plan that was prepared to illustrate the deck along the front of the existing cottage, which is now shown to have been decreased in both overall size and the outward extent of that deck, bringing it into conformity with the bylaw. Our clients plan to remove that deck that protrudes from the face of the cottage and also shorten the length of the deck. So that will essentially create a larger side yard on the east side. It will move the edge of the deck further away from the east side yard. It's unfortunate that construction of these deck additions were begun without a permit, and our clients will, of course, obtain a required building permit to remove and reconstruct the deck. The planned changes to reduce the overall deck area will be ensured by way of the established process that the municipality has in place for the issuance of building permits after acceptable plans have been prepared, submitted, and approved by the township. In considering the application, we're asking the committee to note that the revised deck exceeds the side and front yard setbacks that have been established by the bylaw. The smaller shortened deck will result in the planned gazebo being located further from the adjacent side lot lines. And again, that's also shown on the revised site plan. And it's also illustrated in the table that was included in our supplementary report. So in conclusion, and based on both our verbal and written submissions, we are requesting the committee's approval of this application on the basis that the revised applications satisfy the 4 aforementioned tests for a minor variance approval. And I thank the committee for its consideration. And of course, we're here for any follow-up discussion or questions. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Young, is there anything that you wish to add?
No, for now. Thank you.
The one question I would have, based on your comments, did I hear you say that the deck has now been brought into conformance?
I'm sorry, Madam Chairman. No, it is intended to be brought into conformity. We'll need to get a building permit to do the removal of that portion of the deck that protrudes farther from the cottage than it should, and really a building permit to shorten the deck that has already been begun. So there is some work to be done, but all of that would require a building permit, and we'd like to do that comprehensively.
It might have been helpful if a building permit or an application had been made in advance of construction.
Absolutely. Yes, I understand that, and our clients are sorry for having begun the construction without a permit. I can't give you an explanation as to why. I guess they just didn't understand that they needed a permit because the deck was close to the ground. However, the bylaw is the bylaw, and they do need a building permit, and they certainly recognize that now. And in our discussions with them, they're fully prepared to get that building permit and make the changes to the deck, that are required. I guess I would also maybe add, and I didn't mention in my report, that the gazebo that they want to construct, unfortunately, they've already purchased the kit from a building supply. So they're very hopeful that this application will be approved because they're stuck with a kit that has a gazebo that exceeds the appropriate size.
Well, unfortunately, once again, it was possible that kit should have been purchased after permission had been received.
Absolutely, we acknowledge that. I just thought the committee would like to know.
Do members of the committee have questions for the planners? We do have 2 more delegations to hear as well. Any questions or comments for the planners? Member Rogers.
Sorry, seems I'm asking all the questions today. So through you, Madam Chair, just it's you've read the letters of objection?
Yes, I have. I would say that I believe those letters were written based on the application as it was originally submitted. I don't know that the objectors are aware of the changes that are proposed to be made.
Okay. And do you think those changes should satisfy the objections that were raised?
I believe they do.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I need.
Welcome.
Okay, I gather that we have 2 members of the public who wish to speak to the application, starting with Marlene Kyle.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
Can hear you, we can't see you.
Oh.
There you are.
Okay, thank you. I hope everything's set now.
Yep.
Thank you
So-
for,
Go ahead.
thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to the committee today. We have been homeowners on Oxtongue Lake for approximately 27 years, and we have made it our permanent home for over the past 20 years. Our property abuts the neighboring property on the eastern lot line, and we're very familiar with the property and have seen several changes to this property over the years. This particular property has quite a small amount of level surface between the small cottage and the lake. And once it hits a certain point, it turns into a very steep slope that runs down into the lake. And this is the biggest part of my concern, is that the more area that you put a hard surface on, you're reducing the property's ability to absorb water. And anytime we have any major rain events, big or small, that runoff goes down that slope into the lake or onto the neighboring properties. And that further erodes the slope. That slope does not have any vegetation on it because it's quite steep and windblown from the lake. So there's very limited ability for the property to absorb any rain. There's also something which I did not mention in my letter, is there's a number of very large and very old pine trees on that property. And those trees, if the base erodes any further and those trees come down, that's actually could be a life-threatening situation. We really feel that we need to address the slope and the possible erosion. And we know this happens because our property is exactly the same. And over the past 25 years, we have seen our shoreline degrading, that slope getting steeper and coming back, advancing back towards the house. And we really feel that adding any more hard surfaces is only going to be detrimental to the property. I am sorry that the neighbors didn't take the time to get the building permits. They didn't take the time to investigate what size of a gazebo they should purchase. And this was over a period of over 2 years. So it's not something, it was not a rushed decision by the owners. It was, they took their time to build an illegal deck. They've taken their time to expand this deck where it doesn't even have guardrails on it. There seems to be quite a lack of interest in safety and the actual safety of the property itself. And I do believe in one of the, in the note that Sean had presented as the planner, he mentioned that Oxtongue Lake is highly sensitive to further shoreline development and is at development capacity. There's a reason that statement's there, is our shoreline is in danger. And any further erosion is going to impact not only one cottage, but all the cottages and all the homes on the lake. So I do hope that the committee will take my concerns into consideration and deny this application. Thank you.
Marlene, I would ask if you're aware that the initial application has been revised and the size of the gazebo has been reduced to some extent, still not to the minimum, the requirement that we've got, but it has been revised down to 11.2 square meters.
Yes, thank you. I am aware of that. And I mean, there was a size set out in the policies and procedures for a reason. And this is going over it. And even that small amount going over it is still considered additional hard space and will still have impact on that property.
Do any members of the committee have questions for Mrs. Kyle? Member Rogers.
Thank you. If I understand correctly, you're the property to the east. So when I was looking at the site, you would be on the left-hand side as I'm looking towards the lake. Is that correct?
No,
No?
we're on the right side. We're on the west side of the property.
Oh, west side. Okay. So therefore, I won't ask you the question because there is a gazebo that's already constructed on the property to the east side. That's not your property.
No, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Kyle? We also have one more presenter, Derwin Forbes. We'd like to bring him in. Good afternoon, Mr. Forbes.
Hi, how are we today?
All is well here. You've heard the submissions so far. Would you like to make a bit of presentation yourself?
Yeah, just a few words. I wasn't aware that there was a revision to the actual subject property, so I'm not too sure where everything's moved or they were building, they called it a sunroom when I left at the end of October. And my son went over and measured it, and he says, well, it's actually about 600 square feet. That was just the floor. So now they're saying they're going to put a conditioned sunroom there. Is it that exact same location? Or is it moved over? Or is it on an existing deck?
So I can address that. So the revised application I sent you, it did show the location of the proposed gazebo, which is on an existing deck that's there.
Okay.
So it's not a sunroom that's being proposed. It is a gazebo that's 11.2 square meters.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
sorry, I would also caution not to trespass onto other people's property to measure things. That's not something that would be permitted.
Well, curiosity killed the cat in that case. All my kids are in construction, so it was like 2 minutes. And they weren't there, so it didn't really matter. Anyway, so I don't know where this is being built now, and I'm not sure why they have to exceed the limit. I mean, I don't know where he bought this thing out of the blue. I mean, if you can, at a reputable place like Home Depot or Lowe's, they can return it. So I don't know. The problem is we have a gazebo there, which has been sitting there for years. Brian Carter, the previous owner, he built that thing. And where they were planning on building it originally was just a few feet from our gazebo. And I'm saying, I would like a little bit of privacy. We do use that gazebo quite a bit. So I'm not really happy with the gazebo situation. The deck, I don't know what they were doing there. They built a portion of the deck and then they stop, and I figured, okay, that's the end of that. Then 2 weeks later, they're back building on again. So why they do that? Why didn't you just plan the whole thing and get it done? Permit be nice too, but so I'm not too sure. The other problem, of course, is the drainage there. I mean, it just drops like a rock. It's the same on our property. It drops, but we have trees and shrubs on the hill there, so it's not too bad for us. But I don't know. I'm not too happy. They seem to have taken up a sizable amount of their actual lawn area in the back, up with decks and now a gazebo. So I'm not sure why they have to build all this stuff. As you say, they've got 2 children, but the children aren't out that much anyway. So they're in the house more than anything else. So that's basically my opinion.
Are there any questions for Mr. Forbes? From my perspective as the chair, I'm concerned mostly about the shoreline and development on the shoreline. It would appear to me that the applicant has two choices. One is to build the size of gazebo that is allowed on the shoreline within the shore road allowance, and the other is to move the gazebo back further onto the property. But I would look for comments from the committee about the application. Member Rogers.
Madam Chair, this is a difficult application. It's something I never condone, somebody building without a permit and then coming here and asking forgiveness. I hate that when somebody does it, but the reality is they've done it, and we have a process within our building permits situation where these people will be penalized because they have to apply for this permit after the fact. So that is built into that aspect of this. What is really bothersome is the fact that if they reduce it by a very small percentage, if I understand the report, it's 3.6%. If they reduce it by 3.6%, they comply and they don't have to do anything. They, in a sense, they don't have to change location. They still have the hard surface there. They're there. So for 3.6%, that is to me a minor. That really is minor, and I appreciate what you said, Sean, but I just in this case I think that we should probably approve the variance and allow it to proceed at this point. I just can't get my head around the fact it's only 3.6%, and that's something we've often grant variances for those sizes.
Member McLaren, comments? Oh, you need to turn on your mic. Sorry.
I give a lot of weight to the environmental concern of the hill, and I understand the erosion piece. I think that's where I rest on the issue, is prioritizing the erosion piece and the environmental concerns.
And supporting Sean's recommendation.
And supporting Sean's recommendation.
Member Richards.
Yeah, I have a huge issue with the erosion concerns. My concern is that the deck is allowed without the gazebo on it.
Not
I'm
the size, not the size of the deck that's there though.
Not the size of the deck that's there. So where would the deck go?
So on the site plan, the area in red is the deck that was constructed without a permit. So they're proposing to reduce a portion of that, but the gazebo would be located on a portion of the partially constructed deck right now.
So the gazebo would be further back than what we've been told?
On the site plan attached to my report, it's shown, yeah. So it's in
But
that
that deck
location.
is gonna be under that gazebo.
Correct.
So the hard surface is gonna be there regardless.
Yes.
And therefore the erosion issue is gonna be there regardless.
Correct.
I mean, I just can't justify denying the gazebo when it's the deck that's the issue and we can't do anything about the deck. So I'm gonna have to go that way.
Sorry, I do see Mr. Hungerford's hand is up, and our procedures do allow for him to respond
Okay.
after the.
Go ahead, Mr. Hungerford. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
No, that's all right, Madam Chairman. No, I just wanted to mention that the deck, as it is proposed to be reduced in size, is permitted. So regardless on the committee's decision on the gazebo, the deck will be as it is proposed to be revised. I would also, mention that a deck is not an impervious surface. I mean, the boards on a deck have gaps in them. Water will fall between those gaps onto the ground. So it's not as if there is a large area of concrete or asphalt being created along the top of the property behind the shoreline. It's not that way. So water will still percolate into the soil as it does now. If anything, the water would be slowed down. It would hit the deck before it'll hit the ground. So it'll drip through. I don't know that the issue with the shoreline really is any different than what it is today. So I think really it comes down to looking at a very small increase of 12 square feet on a gazebo that's otherwise permitted on the property. So I just, try to point that out to the committee for its consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hungerford. Any comments to that, Member Richards and Member Rogers?
Is there anything that we could sorry.
If you could just hold on a moment, Mrs. Kyle, we'll get to you.
Is there anything that we could do to mitigate or make requirements to mitigate the erosion as part of this application?
The committee could request or require as a condition additional planting. So that's something that the committee could consider. We would require a planting plan to be submitted, reviewed.
Member, I'm sorry, did you have another comment?
Just for the applicant, is that something that they would be willing to do to address that issue?
I think that there was something in the report that they did mention planting.
Sorry, Madam. I think the applicant would be prepared to entertain that as a condition to the approval.
Member Rogers and then Member McLaren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I was looking at was the air photo, and when you look at the air photo, the subject property seems to have a fair bit of vegetation on it. And unfortunately, when you do a site visit in the winter, it's hard to determine how much vegetation is actually there. But the photo seems to indicate that there's a fair amount of vegetation there now. And the site plan indicated in the drawings that showed vegetation. So I like the idea that we ask for a planting design program or plan, sorry, I guess it is. And that be a part of a condition that we approve it, but also make sure that the planting is there and done properly. So that's something I think we should consider as well.
Member McLaren.
Have we seen a picture of the gazebo? Do we know which way the water sheds? Does it have eaves troughs?
No, I don't have that information.
If it's shed away from the lake, that would make a difference, I think, versus towards the hill.
Mr. Hungerford, did you have a comment?
I don't believe there are any eaves troughs on it. It'll be a drip line all the way around the perimeter. So the water on the roof of it would be distributed around the entire perimeter of the structure.
Mrs. Kyle.
Yes, thank you. Sean, the existing site plan that you sent out in the package, it shows the proposed gazebo off to one side. It doesn't show the reduced size of the gazebo. Is that correct?
So the site plan attached to my report, it does show the gazebo at 11.2 square meters.
At 11.2, but it is not on what would have been the existing deck, correct? So the reason I say that, there was a comment that the gazebo was now going to go on the existing deck, and that's not the case, because where on this site plan, it is in a new position. And I also want to remind you that the deck boards may allow water to run off in a more even pattern, but when you put the hard surface of a roof on a gazebo, it's coming off of the edges in a more force down, straight down the side of the gazebo, straight down that shoreline. So there's a couple of things in the whole report that I seen from the applicant's planner. There's conflicting information in there, whether the proposed deck had been there before, or the proposed gazebo had been there before, which it had not. And I did address that in my my letter of objection. So the whole site plan appears to be a little bit off. I'm not comfortable that you're saying the proposed gazebo is going on the existing deck, because until he built the platform for that existing deck, it did not exist. So I just want the committee to understand that this whole decking is a little bit out of skew.
Yeah, and sorry, my understanding is the gazebo's going on the illegally constructed deck, so it's partially constructed right now, and perhaps Mr. Hungerford could confirm that for the committee.
Yes, Madam Chairman, on the revised drawing that Sean's referred to, the portion of the deck that's shown immediately in front of the green area is already constructed. And appended to that is a deck projection that is to be removed. It's not shown on the revised plan. I think it was shown on the original plan. The other portion of the red area, which is showing off on the east side, kind of to the east of the green area, that is depicting an area of deck that's now framed without a surface on it. And that framed deck is to be reduced in size before it is, well, reconstructed and what have you. And the gazebo is to be located on that shortened section. So when they call it an existing deck, it's basically an existing deck frame. The surface has not been put on it, and I guess that will make it easier to reconstruct, because they'll have to reframe it and reduce that area. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yes, thank you. It does make that a little bit more clear for me. But again, I really have to push, please take into consideration that shoreline and how steep that slope is, and what the water runoff is going to do to their property and their neighbor's property, and most importantly, what it's going to do to the slope in the lake. And as I said, I've lived there 25 years. I see that slope eroding. Thank you.
Thank you to you all. Any other comments or questions by the committee? Unfortunately, the challenge with having 4 members on the committee is that we're about to have a tie vote. Because I do not support the application. I don't think that this is, we have specific requirements for shoreline development. As I said earlier, I think that there are 2 choices. One, that they build a gazebo that is the 10 square meters, or that they move the gazebo back to meet the proper setback requirements. I don't believe that the rationale that has been given is sufficient to approve the application. So my vote is a nay vote as far as moving forward. I'm not sure what you have for a resolution.
So I prepared 2 resolutions, one in support and one in objection, and I guess I would just need someone to move or second putting one on the floor.
I'll move the one in support of,
To approve the
to
application.
approve the
Can
application.
we have a seconder to approve the application? Do we have a seconder to approve the application?
Is there anything we can do to maybe defer it, look at other options? That we could
We've got a
To-
resolution on the
to-
floor. We've got a resolution on the floor.
to look at the erosion at all? Because I think that's what's holding us back is, yeah, we definitely have a concern.
And we
I
also,
have a concern.
I'm sorry, but we have a resolution on the floor. So, it's got to be a,
Then, no, I'm not gonna second it.
Okay, so you're not supporting moving forward with it? Okay. So
And
We need somebody to move to.
refuse the application then.
And Chair, I'd move to defer the application so that we can find, have a proper planting drawings brought in and to illustrate how how the erosion could be dealt with.
do we have a seconder to defer the application?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of deferral?
Sorry, just 1 second. I'll
Oh,
have to
okay, sorry.
craft that.
And just while Sean is drafting that, Madam Chair, as I was looking at the site plan, I all of a sudden realized that the planners have actually given us a site plan that does show up at talk about renaturalization notes. They're notes, they're not an actual plan. So I think that just needs to be invigorated or just revised so that it comes back as an actual planting design on the property.
Member Richards?
As well, they may look at ways they can handle the runoff from the gazebo in a way that would, you know, lessen the impact to that erosion.
With eavesdropping, as you mentioned, now whether that would help or not. Member McLaren?
Maybe we need to see a picture of the gazebo too, as well as the plan.
Then Christine will be back as well, so we have 5 members.
Every once in a while, you know,
So I'll read out the conditions that I've included on the deferral for the committee. So 1, that a planting plan being received from a qualified professional. 2, that erosion mitigation measures being received from a qualified professional, and that the building elevations be received.
so we had a mover and a seconder for that. That was Member Rogers and Member Richards.
Thank you, Sean.
So moved by John Rogers, seconded by Sabrina Richards. Be it resolved, the committee hereby defer application AHMV 2323 pending receipt of a planting plan from a qualified professional, erosion mitigation measures from a qualified professional, and 3 building elevations being received.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, one and all, for your comments and your input. Obviously, the application will have to come back to us. And you know, the timing is, I guess, up to the applicant.
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for?
Sorry, just looking at my calendar. So the last Friday is a holiday. It's Good Friday in March. So I was going to suggest either the Thursday, which would be the 28th of March, or the Wednesday, the 27th.
I can't do either one of those.
Okay.
Could we delay until the Friday, the 5th of April?
BOA. Okay. The next Friday would be the 12th. It's more in the middle of the month, but you're that, okay. All right. I guess would the other members be available?
As far as we know, Member Sharp is available. I'm,
Okay. So perhaps just so we're not, because we might be pushing it a little too far into April if we go any further. So, sorry, did April 5th work for everyone except for Mr. Rogers? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, it looks like we might not be able to do that date. We won't have the staff support for that. So if we did do the 12th, though, again, Member Rogers wouldn't be available, but the rest of the committee. Okay,
okay.
we'll schedule it for then.
Having confirmed that date, hopefully we'll be able to work that out.
Mhm.
Could I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Members Rogers and McLaren.
Moved by John Rogers, second by Fergus McLaren, be it resolved the Committee of Adjustment hereby adjourns its regular meeting at 1:51 PM.
All in favor? That's carried.